I have my timer. I'm going to start it 45 minutes. And if I can finish early, I promise I will. I'm going to cover some information to help you understand about speech and language and communication development so that you can, like Jordan pointed out, notice some red flags and just have a greater awareness of what's all involved with this act that we call speaking. Okay, let's watch this video. Can you pause it for a second, Linda? She said, today I'm going to teach you a new word, mama. And the baby says, dada. The mama says, I wish we had a better sound for you to hear that. And the mama says, say mama. And the baby says, dada. So this next little bit of the video, I'll try to speak the words that you're not hearing coming from the video. But I want you to observe what's happening with this baby. This is a little baby who is learning how to say a new word for the very first time, dada. And there's going to become a moment, she's pretty happy and proud of herself for saying dada, right? She's pretty proud of herself. But that's not the word that Mama's trying to teach her. And in the next few seconds, you'll see the baby's face start to change. The baby's going to notice that the sound that the baby's making is different than the sound that Mama is saying. So she's noticing that the sound she's making is different from the sound she's hearing. And she's going to start to move her mouth. Watch her lips. You're going to see her start to move her mouth, make a mama sound. So let's go ahead and play that. Linda, watch for those things. Mama. Dad.
Mama.
Dad.
Mama.
You can pause it down a little bit. I do this training. I do a training, and I've watched this video hundreds of times, and I always get a chill down my back when I see that moment. When that baby, I see the moment when the baby's brain changes. That baby is learning how to say a new word. And what's happening? What's happening here when we learn how to speak? So I talk about a couple of case studies. Jorge is 4 years old. It's hard to understand him when he talks. He's quiet when he speaks, and his sounds are not clear. So he's someone who's kind of aware that his sounds sound different than his friends. Next one, Max is 6 years old, and he's still not speaking yet. He hasn't learned how to speak yet. He cries a lot, he has unusual behaviors, he doesn't like loud noises, and he makes a lot of strange sounds. A lot of wah. Vicky, how did you sign language that? How did you go, Vicky is in high school. I'm going to be watching you now. She's had learning problems since she was young, hard to learn. Had trouble learning how to read and write, and needs a lot of extra time to take tests. So Miriam had a stroke, like a place in the brain that started bleeding. And now this was someone who was a full adult and then had a stroke. And now she can only say 1 or 2 words at a time. She cannot tell her son what she wants or needs, and she has trouble following directions. Now Lewis also had a stroke, a brain that was bleeding. He can understand everything he hears, and he can speak in full sentences. The problem is he has slurred speech, his speech slurred. So he doesn't speak clearly anymore. All of these people have trouble communicating, but their reasons why are different. I'm going to break down speech and language and communication, because we often lump them into one thing, and that's a disservice to the person who has a problem. Speech is how we say sounds and words. Speech is what the baby in the first video was learning how to do. She was learning how to speak a word. It's how we articulate. It's the sounds that we make. It's our ability to make our tongue go to the top of our mouth to make a perfect sound. That's articulation. Voice, so we have these things in our throat called vocal folds, and when I push air out of my lungs, they go across the vocal folds, and you're hearing me talk, and my vocal folds are going back and forth together, and they go apart for a little bit or a lot depending on the sound I'm trying to make, and it also gives me the ability to go down and go up. It's like a balloon that you stretch, and it makes the squeaky sound. That's kind of like what your vocal folds do. And then fluency is the rhythm of our speech and ability to do it in a fluid way. So someone who stutters and can't get a sound out, a word gets caught in their mouth, that would have to do with speech. Now these things happen in different parts of the brain. So there's a part of the brain, actually there's multiple parts of the brain, so they work together to produce speech sounds. Now the next part of this is language. And they happen all together, but we do have to look at them separately, because sometimes we have only problems with speech, and sometimes we have only problems with language. So language refers to the words that we use and how we use them to share ideas. So it has to do with the baby understanding that the word mama and daddy represent different concepts. Mama's the squishy one that smells nice, and daddy's the one with the scruffy face that throws me in the air and makes me laugh. Two different concepts, two different words. Language is the ability to make new words. So to take a word that we learn, like friend, and then expand on it to give it different meanings. Friend can become friendly, it can become friends, unfriendly, etc. And then how we put words together. Language, if you've been around a little child who's just learning how to put words together, my daughter, when she was a baby, she would go, "Mama, pick you up." She has her arms in the air and she goes, "Mama, pick you up." And I knew she was asking me, "Mama, pick me up." So she has the right concept, but the words are not necessarily put together in the right order. She hadn't learned that yet. And then understanding that we use language differently in different places and different times. I am the queen of being socially awkward and using language in a very non-pragmatic way. I embarrass myself all the time. And it's knowing that in different situations, you might phrase something differently. It has to do with being polite, etc. And also understanding cultural differences. There's some distinct cultural differences that make language come across differently. All right? So we can have speech and language disorders. And what do these things look like? We can have, talking about language, we can have problems with receptive language. So this is the language that we take into our brain through our ears that help us understand what somebody is saying. And we have expressive language. This is our ability to take a thought from our head and organize it and express it verbally to someone. And so when these things develop, typically, you have someone who's able to stand in front of you and have a conversation where they understand what you say, and then you understand what they say. No, we can have troubles, speech disorders. The first little guy that I spoke about in these case studies, I'm just going to come back over here. So the first case study, Jorge, and the second case study, Max. Jorge would have a speech disorder. So his language is in his head. There's just problems with the way his mouth works to articulate the sounds. Max may or may not have language in his head. It's hard to know. But he can make sounds. He just hasn't learned how to pair sounds with language because language is not coming in his head. Vicky has trouble with reading and writing. When we talk about speech and language communication, we have the words that we make out of our mouth, the words that you hear with your ears. And that would be receptive, expressive language. We also have receptive and expressive language in the written format. So those of you that are looking and reading something, you have receptive written language skills. And those of you that are taking notes and writing, you have expressive written language skills. You can have breakdowns in all of these areas. So why do these things happen? There's an incredible multitude of reasons why. I'd like for you to do something with me, okay? I'd like for you to say the word cat. Let's try it again. Everybody, let's say the word cat.
Cat.
Let's say the word kitty. Let's say the word kitty cat.
Kitty cat.
Let's say the word supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Is this a word you know? You know this word? I saw this lady over here. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious takes me several seconds to say that word. I saw this lady over here. Her brain said, ah. When I said supercala, her brain was like, oh, I know what she's going to say. And before I finished saying all of it, I could see her mouth was like this. I'm ready. And the other thing that she wasn't even aware of was she had, in the moment that her brain said, program, supercalifragilistic, execute program, her lungs drew in just the right amount of air so that she didn't run out of air before she finished saying the word. Her tongue was in place. Her vocal folds had already positioned themselves to have just the right amount of air to escape to start that sound. So the mechanisms of the brain to all of the speech, if you think about the lips, the muscles in your cheeks, your tongue, the muscles underneath your tongue, the roof of your mouth, your throat, your vocal folds, your lungs, they all coordinate together to say these complex sounds. That are truly, if you want to recognize miracles in your life, just look at yourself in the mirror every day and say a word, any word, because that is an absolute, literal miracle that our bodies can do these things. So, different reasons why we might not be able to speak well, our speech, or to receptively and expressively understand language. Motor issues. So someone who has cerebral palsy or muscular dystrophy or anything that has to do with the motor planning of the body and movement of the body can experience speech issues. Now, someone with cerebral palsy might have difficulty making sounds and saying words, but their receptive language skills, they might understand everything you say. But they are unable to communicate that with you because they cannot speak sounds. So they spend their life hearing people talk about them, talk about how dumb they are, talk about whatever things we might not say to someone who can talk back to us. one thing I'd like to do with you today is experience Apraxia. So I have a lot of friends at the Little Lighthouse who I've met in my life who have what's called Apraxia. So their brains understand everything that they hear. Their brains have learned words. So there are words in their brains that are trying to come out of their mouth. But in very extreme cases, their mouth is unable to produce even sounds. It has nothing to do with having lips that work or a tongue that works, or all of these things work, but it's like the wires that run from the brain to the mouth are scrambled up. So there's difficulty getting that brain and motor coordination. So because we're going to do this together so you can experience it. Okay. I want you to raise your hands in the air. Wave them like you just don't care. Yeah, no, that's not. It's my pragmatic disability there. I do all these things and you guys don't know what I'm talking about. So sorry. Put your hands in the air. Cross your wrists. Now turn your hands so your palms face each other. And if your arms hurt, please don't do this if your shoulders hurt. Lace your fingers together. And if you can't even do this, you might have Apraxia. Okay, you've got your fingers laced together. Look into the guy in the front row here. Now bring them under. Like that. Good. Okay, for those of you that are still struggling, don't undo your hands if you did it, okay? I'm going to show it one more time. Hands in the air, cross the wrist, put the palms together like you're going to give them high five. Lace your fingers together and then pull them under like you're going to punch your chin. There, I see it now. You got it. Good for you. Okay. I want you to look at your hands. And I want you to move the finger that is closest to your chin. I'm being intentionally vague. Okay? Now, I want you to move your left index finger. Which one's my left? I have no idea. I don't know. Okay? Now the last thing. I want you to take your chin and choose any finger and touch it with your chin and then move that finger. Okay? You're going to give your finger a little cue. I want to move this finger. Okay? So you're going to give it a little cue. Right? Okay. You can let your hands go. Who had trouble finding their left index finger? Did anybody have trouble making their left index finger move? Yes. Can everybody show me their left index finger right now, please? Everybody hold up your left index finger. Yeah. Is that a cultural thing? Do you call this finger a different name? Okay. Yes? Pointer finger? Yeah. Why could you not make that finger move? Is there something wrong with you? You have a finger, you know which one it is. I asked you to move it. How come when you have your hands laced like that, you couldn't move it for me? What's wrong with you? Come on, people. It was hard because the message from your brain to your finger was scrambled. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with your ability to understand the direction I was giving you, to identify that body part, to be able to follow commands. Nothing wrong with you. But your brain had it. I induced a temporary scramble of your brain. That's what it feels like to have Apraxia. That's what it feels like for somebody to ask you a question and you know the answer, but you can't make your mouth move the right way. Children who have autism, like 86% of children who have autism also have Apraxia. This is one of the #1 reasons why children who have autism are unable to communicate with us. In many cases, there's nothing wrong with their brain. There's nothing wrong with their ability to understand what they're hearing, but they simply cannot make their body work the way it should. Does this give you a little empathy for someone who might have autism? It can be extremely frustrating to feel like there's something wrong with you and to recognize very clearly that there is something wrong with you, but you don't understand why. And by the way, this is my husband, Glenn. Yeah. Okay. How am I doing with time? Hang on a second. My friend Linda might get mad at me if I ask her to do too many things. So I'm just going to come over here because I want to show you a little bit of this video of my friend Grayson, and there's a lot of stopping and starting. Grayson has autism, and he also experiences apraxia. And he's using a communication device. So this is a device that when you press a button on it, it speaks a word. And he's kind of using it for the first time. Now this is where you get to see how bad of a teacher I am, because I give him a device that is not charged up. So I have to fast forward a little bit here. What I want you to see, because the device was not charged up, I tried to help him use his hands to make sign language for the word more. And he even has trouble making his hands move to say more. Oh, I think I went too far. It's harder than I thought. Okay. I'm also doing this without my glasses on. Okay, I'm just going to show you this if I can find it. So I'm modeling for him more. Look how he can't even make his hands come together. Did you see that? So hard for him. Now, here in a little bit, I just want to show you. Now, I know that I'm showing you a piece of equipment that might be something that you might have trouble getting. I know that, but I want to show you what's possible. Because he uses this device. He uses this device to talk to me. He's waiting for me to get it set up. He really wants to play with that balloon. And there's a word that he can tell me on the device, more and go. So now I'm going to have him move his finger to say the word go. Or more. Because we want more balloon. And he said the word fast, so I'm starting to blow the balloon up fast. He cannot say these words with his mouth. I'm teaching him a new word, go. So he might not be able to use his mouth to communicate. He might not be able to use his hands very well to do sign language. But I can give him augmentative communication. We'll just watch a little bit more and then we'll... So remember he has apraxia and it's hard for him to make his hands work as well as his mouth. He said the word more. Said the word go. Isn't that fun? More and go, 2 words. Okay, Linda, you can pause that. On your resource drive, I've given you some boards that you can print off and use with children who might have problems like Grayson does. So you might not have a machine that will talk to you, but you can print off a board and put saran wrap on it, put it in a page protector, laminate it if you can, and teach them how to point to a word on a board to say go more, to play with a balloon. I hope I say this right. Yesterday when I was at the community-based organization, the name of which I have trouble saying, we broke up into groups of 3 so that myself and Jordan and Linda and I could each spend some time with some of the families and children that were there with the idea that maybe they could ask us some questions. Hey, can you help me with this? What do you think about that? What ideas do you have for this? And I looked over and I saw Linda moving a child's legs and showing a mother how to do some physical therapy with her child. And I looked over at Jordan and she was talking about feeding or demonstrating something very specific. And I was sitting in a group of mothers and children who were telling me the things that were breaking my heart open wide because there was nothing I could do to help. I had no advice. I had no recommendations because the things that they needed were beyond my ability to give them. So last night I went home and I prayed to God, God, please bring these people what they need. They need changes. They need more things than I can give them. So maybe today's an answer to that prayer. I don't know. But I see standing around you, I see coming here, I see very important people interested in you, interested in what you are doing and what you're putting your energy and your hearts to. And that maybe is an answer to the prayers that I had last night. I don't know. I will pray that that is true. So what a day this has been. All right. Remember the very first thing we put down on our tool list is love. The next thing is prayer. Let's never stop loving. Psalm 31:7. I will be glad and rejoice in your love, for you saw my affliction and knew the anguish of my soul. My friends who have trouble communicating, I feel and sense and observe a lot of anguish in their souls sometimes. Their frustrations, their behaviors that come out, that they might pinch me or hit me or push a friend down, not because they're naughty, not because they're bad children, not because they want to do wrong, but because they have pain in their souls. Because to be able to communicate is one of the most magnificent and miraculous things that we humans are able to do. To communicate the love in our hearts to one another, to communicate brilliant thoughts to one another, to tell jokes, to laugh, have fun. It's how we connect with one another on a heart-to-heart level. It's why living is important. Because we can be in relationship with one another in a very deep and meaningful way. And if you have trouble doing that, there is anguish in your soul, right? We've all had times where we feel like we have not been heard. So what we can do for one another is to, above all things, love one another. And if we have someone who has challenges expressing that love verbally to us or with their bodies or their behaviors, you can love for them. And hold in your body and mind and soul love until they can meet you there and give it back to you in one way or another. I do have some resources, a ton of resources. You're going to need like a week to go through that flash drive that you're getting, because there's over 400 files saved on it. That's why it's taking Ann so long to copy all of them. So make sure you do look in the folders for the communication, speech, and language, because I have these boards, I have resources for you, and I've heard several times, we need a speech-language pathologist. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to serve this child. I want to make sure you understand that there is you're going to have this PowerPoint presentation there too, right? So you can open up this PowerPoint presentation and find this link on there in your folder. There's a free course that's available to you. You'll have to get online to do it. It's a modular course, and it goes very deep into augmentative and alternative communication, which is just one of the tools that we use for our friends who have really big challenges communicating. So if you want to take a college level course, it's like a college level course. You won't get a degree from it or a special certificate, but you will get the knowledge from it that's available for free. And if you have that interest in your mind, I really want you to go check it out. It's very detailed and helpful. And guys, that's it, okay?